I've been keeping my finger on the pulse of this whole shabacle because this is really where we're at right now. We're at this point where people like just literally cannot leave you the fuck alone. Like, okay, you want to purchase a game, you want to buy a game, but people could have absolutely nothing to do with gaming, right? They don't interact with the culture. They don't try to interact with you. They don't even try to negotiate with the market or with the consumer, with the gamer. But they will impose upon you, right? They will come into your house and be like, "No, we know better. We will tell you like what you can and cannot consume. We will control the market." And rightfully, people are firing back. Like, people are absolutely shitting on Visa and MasterCard, right? People are absolutely shitting on activist groups as well as Steam and itch.io. Because this is what happens when you don't negotiate with people. If you don't, try to be like, okay, there's these weird fucking games on this site, we want to get rid of it. And for better or for worse, right? At least you've leveled with people. Now these things are just being forced, imposed, and you're being treated like you're fucking five. Well, people are not going to take that, right? And, like, let me be clear, I don't care for any of those fucking weird fucking rape incest games that they've got rid of, right? Yeah, they're fucking weird. But there's a reason why only 5 fucking people bought those games. And there's a reason why people are throwing hands back at these payment processors, because it's not the content itself people really care about. Like, yeah, they're fucking weird games, right? It's the principle of, utilities. Like, that's what Visa and MasterCard are, right? Utilities, platforms like itch.io and Steam, a group of angry Karens, collective shout, coming between you and dictating what you can and can't fucking play, right? That's just not a can of worms people want to open, right? People like, no, put that shit right back in that can right now, because we're not going to stand for it. So, I mean, if you want to sit at the kids' table and be like, oh, people just want to defend rape incest games, what's weird? Like, if you want to sit at the kids' table, go right ahead. I'm not going to stop you, right? But the actual consumer is looking past that and it's like, well, let's not have this timeline where we're dictated on what we can and can't fucking buy. So, Visa responds to censoring Steam games. What will they say, right? They'll probably be like, oh, well, we didn't make Steam do this. We didn't impose. We didn't. We were holding the sword of Damocles over them, but we didn't drop it, right? They decided to do this themselves. And it's like, well, okay, that's also part of the tactic, right? Is to make people self-censor, like so many other platforms have done this. Oh, we didn't make you do this. And it's like, well, yeah, but your ever-revolving door of rules, right, that you impose retroactively, is people are going to get the fucking hint. Let's give this a watch.
Imagine trying to buy a game on...
I thought I'd give this a watch. Hold on, let me attach my fucking earphones. Professional streamer here, by the way.
Imagine trying to buy a game on Steam, only to find out it's vanished. Not because it's illegal, but because Visa and MasterCard decided you can't buy it.
Yeah, and this is also something, like, it makes a good point. Rape and incest games on Steam isn't illegal, right? That they were there for a reason. I mean, it's disgusting and fucking weird, right? But I don't know, the whole 5 people that actually played those games maybe should be looked into. Like, are you okay, homie? But I mean, they have every right to play those fucking games if they want. I mean, I'm becoming radicalized against this idea of censorship. If people want to play those fucking weird games, they can. You know, and I think I'm being reasonable, even though I don't fucking care for any of those games.
The last few weeks, tens of thousands of games have been removed from both Steam and itch.io, and it's all due to pressure from payment processors. This isn't just about a few controversial titles, it's affecting everything from small indie projects to mature but otherwise legal games. It's a new reality where gamers no longer get to decide what they can buy. But gamers aren't just sitting back. There are reports of a mass campaign, Operation Fighting Fire with Fire. Their goal? To bombard MasterCard and Visa with calls and emails, mirroring the tactics used by groups like Collective Shout, who initially targeted Steam.
Yeah, and if you force people to this tactic, I mean, you have only really yourself to blame. Like, they didn't negotiate. You didn't talk to the gamer. You're claiming brand safety, but I mean, if the people utilizing these utilities didn't really fucking care at the time, you know, they just allowed groups like Collective Shout to dictate what people can and can't consume. Like, yeah, I mean, people are going to like, this is the only way the consumer, the person that puts food on the fucking table of these companies will react, then they have every right to do this. And again, I'm not just talking, you know, an activist group of people who don't actually play games, they don't care for the culture. I'm talking at legitimate people who play games, you know, who buy games on Steam and itch.io. You know, the consumer, the gamer, have every right to do this, even if it is childish. If it's the only way they'll listen.
Collective Shout claimed victory with around 1,000 emails, and gamers believe they can collectively shout much, much louder, simply letting MasterCard and Visa know, hey, these games we want to buy are legal, let us spend our money. So, as gamers express their frustration, Visa has responded to multiple emails with what appears to be a copy-paste response. I've seen multiple different emails, but they all had the exact same reply, so let's see what Visa has to say about the situation. Thank you for reaching out and sharing your perspective. As a global company, we follow the laws and regulations everywhere we do business. This sounds fair. Visa says they follow the law. Obviously, if something is illegal, that is its own situation, and I would agree that it should be banned from Steam. But these games we are talking about are legal, which is the problem. While we explicitly prohibit illegal activity on our network, we are equally committed to protecting legal commerce. If a transaction is legal, our policy is to process the transaction. We do not make moral judgments on legal purchases made by consumers.
I mean, but that's kind of what you're doing, right? I mean, where did all this pressure come from? Well, they came from, you know, activist groups like Collective Shout, which absolutely try to take the moral high ground, and they use morality as sort of like the currency to impose on everybody else, and they obviously imposed on Visa and MasterCard to do these things, well, to force Steam and itch.io on their behalf to censor these games, right? So, effectively, yeah, that's what you did.
This is a very strong statement. Visa claims they don't judge what people buy if it's legal, and if a purchase is legal, they process it. This sounds great. This is what you would assume a payment processor would do. But if you have been paying attention at all to the situation, you would know this is simply not true. From games to crypto, guns, anime, porn, even energy companies, and so much more. But back to Visa's statement. If they don't make moral judgments, What does that even mean? It means they claim they don't care if content is adult, violent, or controversial as long as it's legal.
Yeah.
They say their job isn't to decide what's
Yeah, and that's 100% fair, right? If it is, but like he said, if it's illegal, then that's a completely different can of worms. You know, that's a completely different argument. But these games, they weren't illegal. Like, they've been on Steam for years. It's IO for years, and now all of a suddenly, out of nowhere, they've been removed.
right or wrong morally, but just to make sure money moves for legal products. So they are saying one thing, but then doing the exact opposite. Visa continues in the email. Visa does not moderate content sold by merchants, nor do we have visibility into the specific goods or services sold when we process a transaction. This claim is also very clear. Visa says they don't look at the content being sold. Visa and MasterCard are intertwined in so many businesses around the world, you can't actually expect them to go through every single one to review and moderate everything. Visa also says they don't see what's being sold when money moves. So if they don't see the content, how do they know if something is quote-unquote risky? Well, they rely on reports from banks themselves, complaints from the public, or even activist groups to flag a merchant as risky. So Visa won't look at every single game, but if a platform like Steam has a lot of content that's getting complaints, Visa can view the entire platform as a risk, which is how Collective Shout were able to get Visa and MasterCard to listen to them. By paying
Yeah, but I mean, Steam's a platform, and they do this themselves. Like, make no mistake, Steam is one of the biggest gaming platforms out there. They absolutely will do everything in their power to, not violate, like, hell, even laws and regulations in other countries, right? Like, Steam's a global platform. It's one of the biggest for online games. So the fact that Visa and MasterCard even feel the need to do this, absolutely, can be traced back to activist groups such as this.
painting Steam and itch.io as this very bad place, asking them to demonstrate corporate social responsibility and immediately cease processing payments. But Visa continues in their email. When a legally operating merchant faces an elevated risk of illegal activity, we require enhanced safeguards for the banks supporting those merchants. The last part is key. Visa says if a store has a high risk of illegal activity, they make the banks working with that store take extra steps to be safe. But notice they don't say the content is illegal, just that there's a risk of it. Visa claims that they do not make moral judgments on legal purchases and do not moderate content. But let's compare that to what Valve and itch.io actually said about the recent changes. In classic Valve fashion, they were quiet on the issue, with the only official information we have from them is the new rule change and an official worded response they gave out to multiple different journalists. In their response, Valve hinted heavily that payment processors were threatening to cut them off. They stated they had to retire certain games because losing payment methods would prevent customers from buying any titles on Steam. This made
And that's Steam's admission that, we absolutely were pressured into doing this by payment processors. You know, yes. Like, I think Steam made the best call at the time. It's just the entire situation is fucked, right?
it clear that Steam was now at the mercy of these payment processors despite Valve's usual hands-off approach to legal content. itch.io was even more direct. They flat out stated they changed their rules because payment companies threatened to block all payments on their platform. So if Visa isn't making moral judgments or moderating content, why were these threats happening over legal material? Is Visa implying Steam and itch.io are lying? Well, the answer is in one vague word: risk. Visa states they require enhanced safeguards when there is an elevated risk of illegal activity.
And again, it's like, what does risk mean? Well, it can be literally like this term risk in business can just be whatever the company deems as a risk. It's so vague that it just like it depends on how what that Visa thinks it is or what Mastercard thinks a risk is, right? Risk of illegal activity. So they didn't say illegal activity, period, right? They just said the risk of it. So something that could possibly become illegal down, either illegal down, in the future, or possibly can be illegal if, I don't know, the very content pushes that boundary. So, in business speak, this who the fuck really knows other than who determines this? Well, obviously, Visa and Mastercard determines what the risk to Visa and Mastercard is.
Is an elevated risk of illegal activity, but risk is a broad term. Often, it's not actually about illegal content, but about anything that might generate bad press or public protests. This gives power to groups like Collective Shout. They sent numerous emails, made phone calls, and ran public campaigns, painting Steam and itch.io as risky places, urging these payment processors to cease business.
And again, just out of nowhere, completely out of nowhere, this has happened. Which is like, okay, so these games existed for years, but then out comes the Karens, right? Out comes, the specific type of people whose entire currency is morality, right? Who only really interacts with the world with, looking for things that are bad just to justify their actions, and will come between the paying customer, will come between the consumer to get those things removed. Will weaponize their disgust against everything and pathologize against anything they just deem they don't like. That's where we're at. And again, I've stopped looking at people's ideology because people will justify however fucking way they want, justify their actions. I just look at the actions being done. Like, I'm a very simple person, right?
Which obviously led into them then pressuring Valve. These payment processors hold all this power because almost everyone uses their cards. So when they label a platform as risky, which often just means enough people complained, they can directly threaten that platform with losing access to their entire payment network. This also isn't just about Steam and itch.io either. We've seen similar problems in Japan, where businesses selling certain types of legal adult content have lost payment options from companies like Visa, often under the same risk umbrella. Even Visa's CEO in Japan has been vocally against adult content. This shows a clear pattern. Payment processors, despite their claims, directly influence what can be sold.
Yeah, and didn't the Japanese politicians look into these things? Because, I mean, a lot of, like, people are more pragmatic than you think they are. Like, people don't really operate 100% off morality, right? And Japan knows, like, even if anime is not as popular in Japan, they understand that the way their culture can, yeah, what's the word I'm looking for? Their culture can spread is through, anime, through, hell, in some cases, hentai games. Like, a lot of hentai artists make anime, and then they know anime is something that is becoming more and more popular, right? Like, manhwa for South Korea is the same way, and Chinese gacha games the exact same way. Like, media and entertainment is a perfect way to spread culture throughout the world. So you can argue an attack on these things is an attack on the culture itself. And because of that, Japanese politicians are looking in to Visa and these, payment process, and this is something that's been happening for a couple years. Like DL site was attacked and had payment processes pull out of it for these things, and it was done for brand safety, right? You know, risk things that are completely nebulous and is not entirely expressed to the consumer. So then this is why we are where we are. But now you've pissed off the consumer. You know, you've pissed off, you know, the type of people you don't want to fucking piss off under any circumstances. And I get this all the time. It's like, oh, well, if you're using Visa and MasterCard, then you're complicit. And it's like, no, there's always the option of demanding as the consumer that Visa and MasterCard just stay as a fucking utility. You know, not everything is, oh, you either do it, like use them and are with it, or you don't, and you're against it. No, like, you do, if enough people get together, like they do have the power to pressure these companies, because at the end of the day, they're companies, right? They're not moral entities. They're neither good or bad. They just flow with the culture. Saying right now they're flowing with activist groups, but the consumer's like, no, right? Shut the fuck up and do what the fuck you're meant to do. Then they will change. Like, they're not the government, right? They're not these completely untouchable organizations. Like, they are companies at the end of the day.
If they decide a business is risky, even for legal content, they can effectively shut down that business's ability to operate. So this email from Visa is a clear example of a big company saying one thing, while their actions and the statements of the platforms they work with show something completely different. Now, it's also important to remember, as this video did have a focus on Visa, there are other payment processors involved as well. There are some reports from people calling MasterCard that issues have escalated to a higher department, as they have been getting calls about this all week. Whether MasterCard's higher department actually does something is a different question that we will just have to wait to see. While the exact behind-the-scene details of what happened between payment processors and Steam are unknown, one thing is clear: Visa claims of no moral judgments don't match reality. They use vague terms like risk to deflect responsibility while controlling what content is bought and sold.
Yeah, and they gotta understand, right? These activist groups are moral entities. So if you capitulate to a moral entity, well, then the way that people are going to see it is, okay, yeah, you condone what they're saying and are along with them, and therefore making a moral judgment.
This situation makes one thing very clear: payment companies like Visa and MasterCard have huge unchecked power. They shouldn't be allowed to dictate what legal content can be bought or sold online simply by labeling it risky. Because what really is risky? This unchecked power must be challenged. Payment processors, with their monopoly on transactions, operate as essential services, like electricity or water.
Yeah,
they should be forced to provide fair access to all legal purchases.
Like, imagine your phone company shutting you off because, I don't know, you draw hentai, you draw porn. Like, you make a product that, again, Pornhub.com, like, they're multi-billion-dollar industries for a reason. And, you're just someone trying to put food on your fucking table. But the phone company is going to make this moral stance against you. Like, imagine that. Or like the electric company shutting off on you, for these reasons. Like, it's something that is, like, there are entire works of fiction that revolves around things like this happening. And everyone will agree, yeah, that's a pretty fucked up situation, but for some reason, people agree with it when it starts happening, and if their ideology demands it happens. It's this very odd dichotomy. Like, at one point, guys start wondering, what the fuck do people actually want? You know, do you want freedom or do you just want to morally impose upon people?
This is something hopefully we see happen in the future. That's why collective action is so important. From calling and emailing Visa and MasterCard directly to supporting policies like the Fair Access to Banking Act, gamers are making their voices heard. They're now telling elected officials that these powerful companies are overstepping by blocking legal purchases. There are petitions already, with over 100,000 signatures, and I'm sure it will only grow as gamers start to realize how bad this problem really is. So, what do you think about Visa's email? Do you think Steam and itch.io removed tens of thousands of games just because they wanted to and then blamed it on payment processors for no reason? One thing is clear. Gamers aren't accepting this response, and they want payment processors to stop deciding what content can be sold.
Yeah, I don't think anybody is accepting that. It's like, again, even for things I don't like and I don't care about, you know, I can activate critical thinking mode and be like, but is that really the path we need to go down? And a lot of people are like, fuck no, stay the fuck away, be a utility and shut the hell up. We're banning water because someone might drown on it. Yeah, fuck, exactly. This is exactly what I'm saying. We follow the laws and regulations that we made up, yes. You know, we are addressing the risk that we think might be risky to our company. Visa follows the laws, proceed to break the laws by trying to enact market control, which is a monopoly. I mean, they're effectively duopolies, MasterCard and Visa. I mean, they don't really compete with each other. I mean, they share about the same market share. So anyways, I think this is just the Gooner games that will ever get affected. The same game tried to the same group tried to ban GTA 5 and Detroit Become Human. Banning the Gooner games is just a stepping stone to eventually banning any game they don't like. Exactly. And this is why I'm taking the firm stoic stance of I don't fucking care what the fuck they're going after. You know, I'm against censorship. And again, if it's not illegal, which Gooner Games is not illegal, I'm going to defend it. I'm going to go against this idea of censorship. Why the F would a payment processor need to protect their brand from what? As a payment processor, all they do is process payments and do it in a pretty monopolistic way. What risk can they actually face? Again, it's the risk from activist groups. Like this is what we're, you know, talking like activist groups are they are becoming the risk, just like you know, games journalists do try to become a risk to gaming studios and companies. You know, they're placing themselves between the product and the consumers that want to buy them. This is about, oh man, my Gooner games aren't there anymore. It's about the fact that the payment processors have enough power they can easily just strong arm anyone they want. Yeah, and we know this is how companies act. You know, the game journalists do the same thing. Like, unless you were asleep in the past couple years, we know that like it starts with this. God knows where it's going to end. They're listening to Tim Karens, but not thousands of gamers because they're complicit. It is about power. I mean, again, companies aren't moral entities. I mean, I guess, you know, there's this intrinsic need of like companies to have some level of leverage over other companies and over the market, but this is clearly something the consumer is not going to stand for. Hey, y'all, if you're involved in this, don't send email. Emails can be filtered, but if you gum up their phone service lines by insisting on seeing a supervisor, or God forbid, making them hang up on you, You're ruining their productivity to an extent they cannot ignore. Call, call, call. I mean, both emails and calls, like, do both. Like, spam, like, there's pretty so many fucking bot spam emails you can do, right? I was worth 1,000-person actors group, 1 million angry gamers. Facts. Facts. Like, we need to go back to defending our fucking hobbies against people that just don't fucking care, you know, about your hobby. They just want to impose on you. Like, we need to go back to this, right? You know, because I work hard in order to enjoy the hobbies I want. So I am well within my right to, okay, it might not be your hobby, right? And that's fine, but I will defend what I enjoy and what I like when I'm not working back-breaking fucking work. Game processors have no legal or moral right to tell people what they can or cannot buy. On God, they don't. Can't own a game, can't buy a game. Well, only one option left. Put on tricorn hat and iPad. Yes. Like, in the wake of, well, I'm making this my own video, but in the wake of Stop Killing Games, piracy is back on the menu. Don't condone it. I'm just pointing out, wink wink. We don't judge what you buy, proceeds to ban you buying what you want to buy, yes. Or banning the thing you want to buy, like the damn rape and incest game. God damn. Man's like, I hold the right to buy this shit. Thank you very little. But anyway, that's all I gotta say about this. I am so glad people are actually fighting back and defending, you know, their hobbies. Like, 'cause there's a little time where you couldn't do that, but those times are over, and this is a good thing. I mean, it's a bad thing we're in this situation, but it's a good thing people are figuring this shit out. But anyway, peace.